mean, I think K-State's defense will help win this game and force them into some mistakes. I like the thought of K-State's defense going up against a redshirt freshman QB.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible. Hello and welcome into another edition of 3Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. It is a preview edition today. K-State is going back to New Orleans for the first time since the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago, this time to take on Tulane in what is a tricky road test here in the K-State non-conference schedule. Look, down in New Orleans, they know a thing or two about drinking. I know that many of our podcast listeners do as well. If you are headed down there, make sure and bring them some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery, and let the good people of New Orleans know about just how awesome it is. I know that you guys stock up with it for your tailgates. Again, go be nice, friendly visitors in New Orleans. You can even bring them some 360 vodka as well. But show them what K-State booze is all about, because our friends at Holiday Distillery are great K-State people who love the podcast, support the podcast, so please support them as well. Guys, K-State wins. We have not all been together yet to totally recap together the win over the K-State's win in week 1 over UT Martin, but now they've got to go play Tulane. This becomes storyline number 1, headline number 1 in this one. This becomes a pretty tricky little road test. Honestly, I was somewhat surprised to see the line in most places. Are you still seeing it at like 10 DY? K-State minus 10? Thought it might be a bit tighter than that, and a lot of people seem to be on this game as like a game that they like. Like they like K-State here because some of the models are pushing it out to more like 2 touchdowns, like K-State minus 2 touchdowns. And so I have seen this as a fairly popular pick for the Cats to cover this week.
Yeah, honestly, I thought maybe we would run into a thing where this might be a popular upset pick based on what happened 2 years ago. Everyone kind of just blindly thinking Tulane's going to be a really good group of 5 school. John Summerall, really good coach from Troy. Tulane won their first game in convincing fashion. Kansas State did too, but after a little bit of a slow start, and they have a bunch of first-time contributors, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They'll be making, in a lot of ways, as the starters, their first road trip, which can be a significant hurdle to clear at times. But then I'll go to the flip side, and basically, and my school of thought too, is that, and maybe this is what other people are starting to come on to, is that this Tulane team is significantly worse than the Tulane of 2022 and 2023. I could probably point out 5 to 6 group of 5 schools this year that I easily like more than Tulane. So I think what we all thought Tulane might be in the offseason is not the Tulane that we're going to get. And I think it's actually, and other people have caught on as well, that it wasn't a great sign that Ty Thompson didn't go and win that quarterback job, because I don't think it was a sign that their quarterback play is so good that someone beat out Ty Thompson. I think it's that it's so poor that Ty Thompson didn't win the job. So in Tulane, they're a running team this year. They're not going to be able, I don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball well. They have a solid offensive line, a really good running back, and a defense that's taking a step back too. So I think this Tulane team has really dropped off, and that's why you're seeing some of the projections that you are.
I think it's a little early to maybe go that far, DY. I mean, I don't think we've seen enough on Tulane at this point after one game. I think John Summerall is a hell of a coach, and I mean, I was doing some digging on him. They brought in some pretty darn good transfers on the defensive side of the football, and one of the best pass rushers in college football in the portal that chose him over Oklahoma. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I probably can't go that far yet. Mario Williams comes in at wide receiver, former 5-star recruit. They brought in some talent at the skill positions. Their offensive line is the 10th most experienced in all of college football with 143 combined starts, according to my best friend, Phil Steele. John? So, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could go that far yet to think that they're not a decent team. I mean, they're picked 3rd in the American Athletic Conference in the preseason poll. They've got like plus 330 odds to win the conference. Now, to John's point, the SP Plus of ESPN of Bill Connolly has K-State predicted to win this game by 12.8 points and a more than 70% chance to win, and projects a final score of 33-21, though Kelly Ford dropped his preseason projection from a more than 70% win probability in this game to 58% for K-State, which is closer to probably like a 5-point spread in my estimation. So I don't know. I probably can't get there yet to think that this is going to be an easy game. I think Tulane has some pieces, and it's a tricky spot. So I'm maybe not as down on them yet, but I could certainly change my opinion after seeing them on Saturday. I just candidly didn't get to watch them against Southeastern Louisiana, which they beat 52-0.
And they really struggled in the first half. They were, I think, just a big play turnover that they got 2 minutes before halftime for going in basically up 13-0.
Okay, well, Cole, first of all, it's hard to keep track, man. You're using Phil Steele and you're referencing like someone choosing Tulane over Brent Venables as like those are good things. Those are good signs for them, or what? I can't keep track of all this. I thought Brent Venables was terrible and Phil Steele was terrible.
And another thing too, I would add is it's kind of like the Florida State thing too, where you take in a lot of unproductive transfers, regardless if they're heavily recruited. They probably were unproductive for a reason.
Well, the DN that I was referencing they brought in came from Louisiana Monroe and had 16 tackles for loss last year, 8.5 sacks, and was top 5 in the country in pressure rate.
But I think that's more of the exception when it comes to the transfers that they brought in instead of the norm.
I would say, and we'll get into this into the preview breakdown, but I think they're going to test K-State's offensive line with their defensive line and some of their pass rushers. I think Patrick Jenkins on the inside is a really good player as well. They've got some quality depth at D tackle that they really like. Now, again, some of this is their coaches just talking up some of these guys potentially. I haven't been able to see them. But they seem to be really high on their defensive line and some of the guys they brought in. They had to replace 8 starters on the defensive side of the football, though. 7 projected starters on defense are new guys to the roster this year. So, look, it's probably better, like you talked about earlier in the season in the preview, DY, that K-State catches them early before John Sumrall can fully implement everything he wants. And I think Darian Menza, a redshirt freshman, he was the number 113th ranked recruit at a quarterback position out of high school in the 2023 recruiting class. He's a redshirt freshman, not a high-profile kid. I think he was 2013th ranked player overall nationally in his recruiting class out of high school across the country. So, I mean, I think K-State's defense will help win this game and force them into some mistakes. I like the thought of K-State's defense going up against a redshirt freshman QB.
Well, that I think is going to have to carry the day. And Cole, as I mentioned, like we haven't been together to talk about the game. I did listen to your podcast with Curry, so I heard some of this. But where is your concern level with the offense going into this game and some of the struggles we saw in the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, I found it a little bit concerning. I mean, I think we all agreed that the defense would be ahead of the offense going into the season, but I didn't expect to see some of the struggles that we did, especially in that first half with the passing game, and maybe that was me being too high on the offense and maybe not recognizing some of the kinks that have to be worked out. I mean, I knew they would have some sluggish times, but I didn't maybe expect it to be that. They had 13 points offensively on their first 6 drives of the game, 2 3-and-outs, an interception, obviously, the 1 touchdown, and settled for 2 field goals. And I don't know, I thought the offensive line was solid. The running game was good. I was pretty pleased with what I saw up front from the O-line, not giving up any sacks and mostly keeping Avery Johnson clean. I think there were only a couple rush throws, and they happened more early in the game where the offensive line let guys get through a little quicker than you would like. But I was pleased with that. Where I'm a little concerned, John, is, Keegan Johnson really doesn't have a target in the receiving game. Dante Cephas doesn't have a catch. That's 2 of your starting wide receivers. The catch credited to Keegan Johnson was essentially a jet sweep, right? So they felt like they had to get him involved via that element. And then Garrett Oakley, your starting tight end, didn't get a catch either. So 3 of your 4 starting skill position guys, as far as pass catchers, really didn't have a catch via the traditional passing game. And so that was a little alarming to me, and hopefully that changes. I know we talked about it before, so, off air. Some of the guys were open and Avery Johnson just didn't see him maybe. So ultimately, I think they'll be fine as they adjust and watch film.
Yeah, well, this is, to me, the top storyline of the week, which is brought to you by our friends at Alinco. If you have any home improvement needs, make sure you trust our great pals at Alinco. They are K-State folks, locally owned company. they will get you hooked up. It's headline number 2 for me in our top headlines of the week, but I think this is the most important one. Is the offense up to the task? Defense, we expect them to really ride going into this game. Like Cole mentioned, you're going up against a young quarterback, and we saw how good the defense looked on Saturday. But, man, you probably will need a little bit more from the offense. It certainly can't be the offense of the first half. And like Cole pointed out, Keegan Johnson, again, he has one catch, and it's on a jet sweep where they flip it to him. Garrett Oakley was not very involved. And the other question I would raise is, like, how much will they have to run Avery Johnson in this game? Because if the passing game is going to continue to leave something to be desired, we saw how much things opened up in the third quarter when all of a sudden they called like one read option play and just actually got Avery running, right? So how much will they have to go to that against Tulane here?
You at least have to have the threat of it to open up the passing game and take a little bit of the pressure away from that phase of the game, so it becomes a little bit easier and there's a little bit more room to operate, of course. But it's got to be better. I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying that, but at the end of the day, I don't really think that there was one person or one area that really is 100% at fault for kind of what went down there. I think it's more Avery Johnson needs to, trust what he's seeing, get through the progressions a little quicker, fire the ball when he does see a guy open, not be tentative, not be hesitant, and to see the field a little bit better, because those were just the things that I thought were kind of faulting him a little bit, and even the interception probably faulted him a little bit, and the receivers got to be better too. It's not in the past couple years though, and I'm like, man, these receivers, that was a brutal game. They didn't get open like that. That like when we put 80 to 90% of a game like this on the receivers, right? Like it's like, man, there is just nothing there all game. It wasn't that. So that makes me feel a little bit better, because I think, nothing against Avery, but I think there was receivers running open a lot more frequently than maybe what we saw, just blindly right there. So I come to that. Offensive line-wise, no issues. And obviously that's a big part of the passing game too. But they had 28 dropbacks last week, and Avery Johnson was only pressured twice. That rate is probably going to be in week 1, probably the best rate of any offensive line in the country. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, only one QB designed run in the entire game against UT Martin, as John alluded to. It was a 17-yard run. It worked very effectively. I would like to see him not so much maybe more design runs, maybe a couple more, getting him out on the edge and getting him in safe space where he can get down or get out of bounds. I'd just like to see him get him on the move more and put the pressure on the defense to, do they come up off their receiver and try to think Avery Johnson's going to go downfield with his legs and use his legs and roll him out of the pocket and put that pressure on the defense to make a decision. Do they come up, cheat up, or do they stick with their guy? And if they stick with their guy, then Avery can go ahead and run, get 10, 12 yards, get out of bounds safely without taking a hit. If they decide to cheat up, Avery can float it over the top or get it to one of his pass catchers. I think getting him out of the pocket more. I thought they kept him in the pocket, and that was probably the game plan and trying to develop some things and using that as kind of a preseason game, essentially, against UT Martin. I think you get him out on the edge just a little bit more. It's going to put a lot of pressure on those opposing defenses, including Tulane on Saturday.
I just don't think the offensive approach we saw in week 1 is what will be what they do. I like you said, I think they treated that as a preseason game to give guys some run, to work on some things and see it in action, and also to probably keep some things covered up and also take away the legs of Avery Johnson. You don't want to even 5 times run Avery Johnson against UT Martin and disaster happen. So I think the offense is going to look a lot differently, because now it's going to be a game plan and a play calling structure designed towards a specific team to defeat a difficult opponent, rather than a preseason game where we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that, we're not going to do this even though this will help us, stuff like that.
Would agree. And Avery was asked this week about, running, how much he wants to run, all of that, and said all the right things about, like, look, I mean, just whatever it takes to win. Top storyline brought to you by Alinco. They've got all your home improvement needs covered. Local company based out of KC. They're owned by K-Staters, locally owned since 1986, and it's in an industry where many have been bought out by national companies. So if you want to deal with local people who are K-State fans for new windows or a bathroom remodel, or Kohler Lux Stone shower systems, premium window replacements, they can even do new siding on your home. and they'll come all the way out to Western Missouri, Northeast Kansas, the entire KC Metro, so more than just KC and Manhattan. Go to alencohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com, ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates. Call Sam at 913-961-2165 to get that started. All right. Headline number 3, I would say one good thing to come out of week 1, boys, is that it seems like the team is pretty healthy here. I know we have some concerns at linebacker. Austin Moore gets kind of precautionarily held out of the second half of the game. Asa Newsome, I don't know, DY, how you interpreted what Chris Kleiman said about him at the press conference. Like, maybe a chance that he would be available, but like outside of that, knock on wood, it seemed like they came out of week 1 in really good shape to go down and take on a Tulane team where you're going to have to utilize a lot of depth just because of the humidity there. You assume that the temperature is going to make it a little trickier, and you'll have to dig deep into the bench, much like they did, honestly, in week 1.
Yeah, they're in good shape from a health standpoint outside of one position, and unfortunately, just like last year, it's the linebacker spot. The difference being that, knock on wood, you don't have anything long-term there. Austin Moore should be able to play this week. I didn't get the sense that he was out or that something was aggravated there, and that's why they pulled him. I think they got a half out of him and felt good about where they were and comfortable enough to not play him any further. With Asa Newsome, it sounds like questionable at best still. More optimistic than last week, but it didn't sound like optimistic like he would play, just more than last week.
Yeah, I would probably rest Asa one more week and just make sure that he's good to go for the remainder of the season, because he's going to be a crucial piece, and he's the backup to Desmond Purnell, though we just talked about, John just said, the weather going to be a factor, and Desmond Purnell played practically every snap until they put the backups in.
He had 11 or 12 more snaps than anybody else on the defensive side of the ball, which, I'm just drawing conclusions here, not that anyone's explicitly told me, means that the only backup they really trust for Des is Asa. So that's why Asa is really important to this year's team, because Desmond Purnell was the best player on the football field in week 1. But if he's taking 90 to 95% of the snaps every week, I don't know if he's going to be the best football player on the field by week 12 or week 13 or week 14, and that's important.
Desmond's going to have to drink probably an extra 70, 80 ounces of water the night before compared to his teammates, because he's going to probably be on the field more than anybody.
That probably starts on Monday.
That is not tonight. Cole, did you listen to Chris Kleiman in the press conference? He said it starts the week before, not the night before, the week before.
Okay. My mistake, guys. Actually, guys, I got the weather forecast for New Orleans. We're recording this on Wednesday, so things could change a little bit. But 84 for a high. Feels like 89. We're going to have 71% cloud cover, so minimal sunshine out there on the field on Saturday, 71% cloud cover. And did you guys notice the new canopies behind the bench on Saturday that K-State had up, that they were testing out, that are new and that they're bringing down to Tulane as well to provide some shade for the team? Maybe you didn't notice that, but humidity is going to be 78%. The humidity currently in Manhattan tomorrow is going to be 60% on Thursday, so an 18% increase in humidity, which is 60% is moderate, 78% is high. We also have a 55% chance of showers on Saturday morning at Tulane, which could go away by the time of kickoff. However, they are expecting an inch of rain, a downpour in Tulane, in New Orleans, on the Friday before the game. Now, I have not spoken to Tulane's team and the drainage system that they have there on the football field and how that will drain, but we could expect maybe perhaps a little bit of a slip field going into kickoff on Saturday. And
grass or turf?
I think it's a turf field from what I recall in watching Tulane, but I need to confirm that and verify. We'll get that out to you guys as soon as we can.
I was told to expect maybe rain in the first half.
Okay. Rain in the first half makes you a little nervous about a young team and protecting the football, but they got a redshirt freshman quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to say, their quarterback's the same age.
Yeah, exactly. So Tulane does have turf. Dick Springer, our producer, has confirmed that for us. So it's rain relatively okay.
Not only that, it is Hellas Matrix turf. All right. And of course, everybody knows it's Hellas Matrix turf that they will be playing on at Ullman Stadium.
Any relation to Hellas? No.
It's spelled like Hellas, like Hellas. Well, so maybe. Just kidding, Hellas. Cole, that was very impressive. Did you consult with like Brian Busby to bring that weather forecast to us?
Well, I actually was going to play like some weather music in the background, but I figured I'd get the roll eyes look from you guys as I gave the weather report. So I decided not to do it to annoy you guys. And I just noted that before we went on the show and pulled that together. And also 10 to 20 mile per hour wind. And that's coming out of the Northeast. Now, if it's like here, Northeast wind, that might cool things a little bit. So I think K-State ultimately will be okay. It actually feels hotter in Manhattan on Wednesday and Thursday of this week than it will feel in New Orleans. Now, the humidity brings a different factor to it. You're going to sweat more. So hydrate up, as John and DY educated me. Start hydrating now.
Remember the chart that Texas
Yes.
football that used to have that was like the hydration levels, and it was like,
Tom Herman. Yep.
Yeah, Tom Herman. If it's too dark, like you're a selfish SOB, just like is shaming you.
It was the urination chart. Yep.
Yeah, they need to get those things up. Get those things up in veneer this week. Okay, well, I assume the good folks at Home Field Apparel stay hydrated all the time. They would have to be hydrated all the time to make the great gear that they do. All the best K-State gear around is at homefieldapparel.com. Make sure that you have that ready for your watch party on Saturday, or if you are going to New Orleans, like our friends Colm and Harambe from the Discord, patreon.com/3ma. If you want to sign up there, I know they're going. I'm sure they'll be wearing their Home Field Apparel. You should be too. 100 plus K-State or 100 plus teams available, 50 plus K-State designs there. You can be like my guy DY and wear the Oklahoma State script shirt. I love that. The Pokes. All right, Cole, how are we feeling about this? DY jumping on the bandwagon full force with me.
Big game this week.
The Pokes.
Big game this week.
Look, I can get behind Oklahoma State when they're playing an SEC program in Arkansas, which is where Mike Gundy will be the next head coach after the season, after Sam Pittman gets fired. So a really fascinating game.
Look, I love Mike Gundy, but would Arkansas fans be cool with that? Like, would they want that? I don't know. We don't need a whole discussion about that, but
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm outvoted on that one. The SEC ego, I feel like maybe wouldn't want to take the Big 12 coach. But look, if you want to support Oklahoma State, you want to jump on the bandwagon too, you can do it at homefieldapparel.com. Get 15% off your first order with promo code 3MA24. 15% off your first order with promo code 3MA24. And if you do get Oklahoma State gear with that 3MA promo code, please take a screenshot of it and tweet it to me at JL Kurtz so that we can show Cole that is how you are using our promo code. So anyway, before Cole kills me, we're back in a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Well, with that promo code, it's not like you could say we've never done anything for you, but now we can double down on that statement because we're giving you a chance for an extra $500. Go to BlueWirePods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and in turn help this show. That's BlueWirePods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. BlueWirePods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of the episode. We had some action on the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. We appreciate you guys reaching out. It's 913-407-6524. Again, 913-407-6524. You can send your questions or comments to the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. Your reactions to the show, your questions. What do we have, DY?
No name, so don't know who sent this, but says, "Hey boys." So we're one of the boys now. Random question here. One, I know the offense was pretty vanilla, but it's hard for me to not be concerned about our wide receiver room and their ability to consistently get open, especially Johnson after the offseason hype. Am I overreacting?
Well, who hyped up Keegan Johnson here? I don't.
Yeah, well, not just us, like, right? It's every single team and every single coach. So what I will say is what they're seeing in practice has yet to be translated to a game. Doesn't mean it's fraudulent, just doesn't mean it's not translating yet. I'm not going to overreact after one game against an FCS club where they didn't have a typical game plan or play calling structure.
I asked Curry about that on the 3-month bonus edition we did on Tuesday that's out there. You guys can give it a listen. And look, he made a comment when he played. He had a season opening game where I think he had just a couple catches for 0 yards or something along those lines. And when you're constantly rotating guys, it's hard to get in a rhythm. And it looked like K-State made it a clear point of emphasis to rotate wide receivers and everybody in and out of the game. And I also would just say that I think Keegan Johnson was probably open 2 or 3 times. I mean, look, in the grand scheme of things, K-State went 14-21 passing, Avery Johnson did. And so that's 7 incompletions and then a couple scrambles that he had. So there were 9 dropback attempts that didn't result in a completion. And when you think about that and you say 3 to 4 times maybe guys were open that weren't seen on some of those incompletions, then I don't think I would get overly alarmed yet. Now, if we're sitting here after the non-con and Keegan Johnson's got 3 or 4 catches for the first 3 games of the season for 50 yards or less, then yeah, I'd probably be a little bit alarmed by that. The same thing would go for Dante Cephas and some of the other wide receivers. Like they gotta spread the ball around, distribute it more. It can't just be Jace Brown who led the team with 5 catches for 71 yards. Other guys have to get open, and I think some of them were. And Avery Johnson just got to see the whole field. He's making his 2nd start in his career. He will get better at that. They went into the film room, I'm sure, and he will see things differently the more reps he gets under his belt.
That's why I tempered some of my expectations on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of contributors playing their first real college football at a significant level, so you're probably going to even see some of it more. But what I will say, not an apples-to-apples comparison, different circumstances, but in the Big 12 championship year, the passing game was even worse than game 1 against South Dakota.
Yeah, they threw for 50 yards, didn't they? Adrian Martinez had like 55 yards against South Dakota.
And then they lost to Tulane, so let's not repeat that.
And, it was, different quarterback is the one who, wound up winning the Big 12 championship. But yes, by the way, Curry Sexton had 3 catches for 18 yards against Stephen F. Austin. He only had 3 for 21 the next week at Iowa State in a game that they won. So it did take him a bit to get going. And I must say, Cole, I listened to that. Masterful pivot from, Keegan Johnson, 1 catch for 6 yards, but Curry Sexton had a 1,000-yard season doing the same sort of thing. So we're still on track for a 1,000-yard season for Keegan Johnson. That is better than I underestimated you. Let me just say, I underestimated your ability there.
That was actually Curry that helped me though with that. I was actually asking more of a alarming question about it. And he was the one that calmed everything down and tried to level set. So he saved me.
2 is Baylor-Utah, a conference game or non-conference like KSU-Arizona, non-conference.
Non-con. 2 touchdown favorite. Utah's a 2 TD favorite. Now, Utah looked awesome. Like Cam Rising led 5 touchdown drives through 5 touchdown passes on their first 5 drives against Southern Utah. But I will say I watched, there's a Baylor guy who does Baylor football in 20 minutes or something and, cuts the game into 20 minutes. I watched, the first half on YouTube. Daquan Finn did look really fun. Now, he had a couple of turnovers, but that guy, he can move.
He's going to be fun and reckless at the same time. That's how it's going to be. He's probably going to lift their upside, though, and that's why I kind of thought Baylor might be, not in that 14 to 16 range, but maybe more in that 9 to 11 range.
And yeah. Utah lost one of their best corners for the year in week 1.
I still think I would take. I wouldn't put. I think 14 is probably about right, but I would lean Utah covering that number though, so I wouldn't. Yeah.
And Baylor choked that game away last year in Waco against the Utes. I mean, they were up 2 scores right late in the game and lost. So yeah, just a rematch now going to Salt Lake City, return visit as a non-con game, just like K-State and Arizona situation.
Lots of ways to get in touch with us. Obviously, as you just heard, the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. If you want to be a part of our Discord and regularly communicate with us, you can sign up patreon.com/3mod to become a Patreon member, which gives you access to the Discord and bonus episodes there. But also make sure that you're watching out on Saturday. We will be doing a live post-game show around an hour after the game goes final. So just stay around. I'm sure we'll be tweeting out the links. So if you're following us on Twitter at @JLKurtz, we'll get the links out there to you. But also if you are following the YouTube channel here, you'll be able to find it very easily. So make sure and join us after the game to get a little bit of instant reaction to K-State and Tulane. Speaking of, we've heard a lot about them already. Cole has been sprinkling in some knowledge throughout the show, but what else do you have to tell us about the Tulane offense and defense?
Well, I mean, I guess we should start here. DY, do you respect Tulane? Because last year you did not respect Troy, and John Summerall comes from Troy to be the Tulane head coach. I guess you don't respect Tulane, it sounded like.
I kind of give you a hint. If they had good enough quarterback play, I would do it. I was listening even to some guys that like Kelly Ford and other stuff, like betting experts that have their own models, and they completely are out on Tulane this year because of quarterback play. They think it's going to be that putrid. I kind of am on board with that. I think they're going to be very one-dimensional on offense, and I think the defense is not as good as it was in 22 and 23.
Well, look, I would certainly be more nervous if Ty Thompson had taken the quarterback job by the reins. You know, former 5-star recruit, number 31 player in the country, transferred in from Oregon, was supposed to be the guy at QB, and he got beat out by a redshirt freshman who did not have near the recruiting pedigree or profile that Ty Thompson had. So I feel better about that fact. Now, Ty Thompson came in the game against Southeastern Louisiana in the opener. He rushed 4 times for 23 yards and 2 touchdowns, so I think we could see them sprinkle him in offensively on occasion to run the football perhaps, but sounds like he struggled with some accuracy. And
again, that shows the one-dimensional side of things that I kind of think that they are. So yeah, I'm out.
Well, I would say though, I mean, and again, I didn't see the game, but Darian Menza went 10 and 12 passing for 205 yards and averaged 17 yards an attempt, and Mario Williams,
UT Martin's better.
Better. Yeah, so UT Martin in the SP Plus ranks 148th nationally between FBS and FCS teams. Southeastern Louisiana is number 179. Though to give you some perspective, so in 2022, Southeastern Louisiana went 9-4, even won a college football playoff game in the FCS level. However, last year they went 3-8. And just to bring you a little bit more perspective, they lost to Houston Christian last year, 34-19. UT Martin last season played Houston Christian and defeated them 66-7. Southeastern, yeah. Go ahead, DY.
No, that's what I said. I also use that as a kind of a barometer for Tulane, and that they started so slow, just like K-State, but against a far worse opponent. So,
yeah. We all know John Summerall can really coach. What's interesting about this is Willie Fritz and John Summerall were arguably the 2 best performing Group of 5 coaches each of the last 2 years in college football. Fritz leaves Tulane to become the Houston head coach. Summerall goes to Tulane. Both won 23 games in each of the last 2 seasons. Summerall went 23-4 at Tulane, led them to back-to-back Sun Belt Conference titles, and took a program that had only won 15 games total over the previous 3 seasons to winning 23 games. He's done a hell of a job. Troy finished last season 26th in the SP Plus, was actually just 1 spot behind KU at number 25. Look, you think about Troy and John Summerall, you think about defense. And a lot of this is going to be predicated on what we looked at what Troy did, but also trying to carry it over to what the Tulane roster is. So it's a little bit challenging. What we can tell you is that John Summerall can really coach defense. If you look at their defensive metrics from the year prior, they were number 10 in points per drive allowed in both 2023 and 2022 nationally. They allowed 1.44 points per drive in 2023, 1.49 points per drive in 2022, both ranked 10th nationally in that metric. Troy was number 9 in yards per play allowed in 2023 nationally at 4.6. They were number 9 nationally in 2022 at 4.6. They allowed 3.2 yards per rush last season. That ranked number 10 nationally. 3.6 yards per carry in 2022, number 24 in the country. They had the 4th highest sack rate in the country last year at 10.3%. They were number 13 in turnovers forced in 2022, 34th in turnovers forced the year before that. National pass efficiency defense rankings, 34th last year, 13th in 2022. If you look at the F+ rankings, they were a top 25 defense each of the last 2 seasons. So a really solid bunch here. And now, how does John Summerall carry that defensive mind over to this Tulane roster? I already mentioned 8 defensive starters are gone. 54% of the defensive production returns. That's 97th nationally. They brought in 11 defensive transfers, including 6 in the secondary. They lost a lot of guys on the back end of that defense. Now, I highlighted how good Troy's defense was last year, but I would be fair. K-State went in and scored 42 points in Manhattan against Troy. The most that Troy gave up in any other FBS game last year was 24. K-State had 5.7 yards per play. That was the second highest allowed by Troy last season. K-State scored 42 points on 12 drives. That was 3.5 points per drive. So they didn't have too much trouble with that John Summerall coached defense. But again, this is a different program. It's hard to figure out how this is going to work. If you think about this Tulane defense, 8 of its top 12 tacklers gone. Jesus Machado, also part of that. Their leading tackler tore his ACL in their bowl game. He will not play against K-State on Saturday. Now, they love what they have at DN. And a quote from John Summerall earlier in the season was, the best pass coverage is pass rush, and we get people into predictable pass situations. We've got some good stuff and good players that can execute. Aiden Huntington, guy I mentioned earlier, Summerall says can be an all-conference player, and he was a top 10 pressure guy in college football last year. A really talented piece on the edge, and Patrick Jenkins could be an all-conference type player at defensive tackle too. So they seem to really like what they got at linebacker. Tyler Grubbs, a really veteran guy, 317 career tackles, and then the transfers they brought in. They like the depth up front and at linebacker. I think the secondary is probably the biggest question mark for this defense.
Okay. What else?
Oh, I was hoping you guys would, kill some time there to let me catch my breath. Offensively,
I'm not impressed.
Well, I was going to say, here's the problem, Cole. DY has made it very clear that he does not respect Tulane. I am cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic about the game going pretty well. I'm not going to throw the disrespect out there that I threw out for UT Martin. I'm just kind of trying to shield things, though, because the more that we get DY involved with this conversation, the more we're going to wind up with egg on our face. And I will also say I did, in honor of the Florida State guy who said that he would eat a cup of dog poop with a spoon on camera if Florida State lost to Boston College. I did proclaim yesterday on Twitter that if K-State loses to Tulane, I will eat Chipotle raspberry the bean dip from Taco Lucha and So Long with a spoon on camera if K-State loses to Tulane. So I feel like we've already done a good amount of disrespecting the Green Wave here. You clearly respect them with all the numbers and history and everything that Summerall has done in his career. So that's why I didn't want to go too far down that road, my friend.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fair enough. And look, on the offensive side of the ball, Troy was always known for defense. Summerall is known for defense. Now, their offense got far better last year. The year prior, they were not good on the offensive side of the football at Troy. He brought both his defensive and offensive coordinators over with him to Tulane. It's an offense that obviously lost a lot. Just like the defensive side of the football, Michael Pratt, their quarterback, their 4-year guy there, 9,500 career plus yards, over 100 touchdowns between rushing and passing. He's gone. They lost their top 3 wide receivers, a good group, including Brazel, who transferred to Tennessee. Chris Brazel, 6'5", receiver, 700 yards last year, 16 yards reception. He's gone at Tennessee. Lawrence Keys, second on the team with 600 yards, 18 yards per catch, gone. Jaquan Jackson, also gone after posting 17 yards per catch last year, a guy that had 1,800 career yards. Now, they brought in 10 transfers on the offensive side of the football. Their one strength is going to be, as DY mentioned earlier, the running game. They come in with one of the most experienced offensive lines in college football, featuring Derek Graham at left tackle, Shadre Hurst at left guard, Vincent Murphy at center, a guy that transferred in that's got 60 career games under his belt, Josh Rematich, right guard, and Rashad Green, a guy who's played a lot for them at right tackle. They feel good about that offensive line, 143 combined starts, which ranks 10th most in all of college football. And then they got Mekhi Hughes back at running back. Hughes was a redshirt freshman last year at Tulane and ran for nearly 1,400 yards and 5.3 yards per carry. Yet despite that, as a team, they only averaged 4.1 yards per rush and ranked 79th in the country in yards per carry, which is an interesting dynamic there. Like I said, they feel really good about the line that they've got up front. They think they have several all-conference type guys, so it'll be a test for K-State's young defensive line, and we'll see what Damian Ilalio and the nose tackles can do up front. Mario Williams, former 5-star recruit, coming in, transferred in from USC. Previous to that, he was at Oklahoma. He led them with 124 yards and 4 catches in the opening game against Southeast Louisiana. Really talented guy, explosive guy. K-State will have to be on alert there. We already talked about Darian Menza, redshirt freshman quarterback who beat out Kai Horton and Ty Thompson for the job. Not a lot known there. He's a redshirt freshman. I would just say this, guys, and I said it earlier. K-State didn't force a turnover in the season opener against UT Martin. K-State's been top 15 in turnovers forced each of the last 2 seasons defensively. I fully expect the K-State defense to get 2 to 3 turnovers in this game. A couple takeaways, and I think that'll be instrumental in K-State pulling away from the green wave.
That was an interesting nugget from week 1, and I hadn't thought about it until I listened to Chris Kleiman's press conference on Monday, but he said that. He was like, hey, we actually, we were -2 in turnover margin. And I was like, oh, that's right. You have an Avery Johnson interception, and one was a fumbled kickoff return, obviously, but that is a place that K-State has absolutely thrived. So, yes, it would behoove them to win the turnover battle. It will behoove all of us to get to quick hitters. And Cole was telling me off air before we started here that he was having a hard time with question number 1 here, which is, what will be the higher number on Saturday? Keegan Johnson catches or the total number of K-State sacks, which on Saturday was 4-1 advantage to the sacks, and the one reception was a little flip forward on a jet sweep. So DY, Cole's already requested some time to think about this. What about you? Are you going Keegan Johnson receptions or K-State sacks? What will be higher?
I will say Keegan Johnson receptions because I expect a bounce-back game and him to be heavily involved in an offense that has like I said, a typical game plan and play-calling structure, and parlay that with Tulane having a pretty good offensive line, or at least one that'll apply more resistance than UT Martin did. So I am more likely to pick Keegan Johnson receptions. The caveat here of where I could go wrong here is that Kansas State will make a concerted effort to make Darian Menza very uncomfortable.
Well, there's a few things here. So I just highlighted their offensive line, but they were 85th in the country in sack rate allowed last year, 7.1%. Now
another year, those guys are all together again. Yeah.
And sack rate's not the best stat. I wasn't able to get the pressure rate pulled and see what they had on that front. But the other thing, DY, you just mentioned, this is a team that's probably going to run the football quite a bit. So how many opportunities are going to be sacked? Darian Menza. Now, if K-State gets out ahead, like we all hope, they'll have to drop back and probably throw the ball more in case they can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback more. But ultimately, I think Keegan Johnson will be a point of emphasis for this K-State offense in week 2. I think we'll see some different wrinkles offensively. I look for him to bounce back. I'd say Keegan has 4 catches in this game, 4 to 5. I think K-State will be under that number in sacks.
Yeah.
So this is a tough one. I mean, this is why I made the question the way that I did. I'm going to say push 3-3. 3 Keegan Johnson receptions, 3 K-State sacks. About that.
If it's just 3 sacks, I think Keegan's the pick. Yep.
Where does the 2022 loss to Tulane rank on the list of most frustrating Kleiman non-conference losses? Which you can include Navy or not. I'll leave that one up to you. But I'll say 2023 Mizzou, 2022 Tulane, 2020 Arkansas State. Where does the Tulane game rank there in terms of most frustrating?
And to me, bowl games don't really qualify. That's kind of how I see it. And if Cole's taught me anything, it's that 2020 doesn't count as well. So you basically get Mizzou or Tulane. Look, the Tulane one sucks, but it really didn't do anything to the season. In hindsight, you still accomplished basically everything you would have if you had defeated them. In the moment, though, Tulane, much more frustrating. In hindsight, probably Mizzou.
Yeah, it's a great question, actually, because in the moment, I felt like Tulane was the most frustrating non-con loss of the Chris Kleiman era. I was obviously at the game. The offense just couldn't do anything. And it was infuriating just watching the same thing over and over again in a game that you expected to win. And that one stunk. I mean, Missouri, both these teams ended up being really good in hindsight.
Tulane, they both won the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, they both won New Year's Six bowls and both went on to win 11 games or more. Did Missouri get to 11? I think they got to 11 wins last year with the bowl win. Arkansas State doesn't count, COVID season. But I would also, in all seriousness, I say that in jest. I mean, things just felt weird to me in the COVID season. I was at home watching that game, and I don't miss home games. And it was hard to get into it as much. And so that one I just kind of brush off. But I would probably lean toward Tulane in the moment, though Missouri meant more.
In hindsight, the right answer in hindsight is Missouri. In the moment, Tulane was definitely far more disappointing.
I mean, Tulane was really frustrating. It was definitely very frustrating because of the way that the game went. I mean, at least Mizzou, there were moments where you were ahead and had some control of the game. Tulane never really felt like that. Plus, it was literally at the same time. My experience watching that game was I was at the Peanut, and I'm watching Kansas just roll Houston at the same time. And so KU fans in the bar are just going absolutely nuts because K-State's choking at home and they're rolling Houston. But man, that Missouri game, that hurt. That really hurt. I feel like I was more frustrated by Mizzou, especially because late in the game, I mean, they had every opportunity to win that game, had taken control of it in the fourth quarter. I remember turning to Cole in the stands there at Faurot Field and being like, this is it, man. They just punch in one more drive here, finish off one more drive. This is it. And they couldn't do it. And Stan Weber made a great point the other night at the KC Catbacker event. He was like, dude, that could have buried Mizzou. Like, they were literally that game. They were booing Brady Cook. Eli Drinkwitz, was getting some boos from, like, they were ready to run him out of town. They lose that game. Who the hell knows where their season and program winds up? And now all of a sudden, they're a top 10 team. So it's Mizzou kills me.
Mizzou's the right answer now, knowing everything that we know. But like I said, in the moment, it was Tulane, because not only are you losing to a group of five school that you don't necessarily respect at that moment and the way that game played out, and you were anticipating playing for a Big 12 championship. Now you still do, but that's right after, struggling offensively against South Dakota, having questions about your offense. At that point, losing to Tulane, you don't really see a Big 12 championship being possible.
No. And you got Oklahoma on the horizon, and things looked like they could be in shambles after you were starting to feel some momentum. But
and there's questions about Adrian Martinez at that point.
Beating Missouri would have meant more, obviously, too. And so that one, probably.
The Tulane loss didn't matter at the end of the day, looking back.
Cole, I'm going to start with you for the next one because I know what Derek's answer is going to be, but really bad performances in week one from Texas Tech and West Virginia. Texas Tech needed overtime to narrowly escape 52-51 over Abilene Christian. West Virginia fell flat on its face in a huge opportunity for the Big 12 against Penn State. Who wins more games this year, Texas Tech or West Virginia?
It's West Virginia easily. I mean, did I hear DY say that Texas Tech was still sixth in his power rankings? I almost veered off the road driving when I was listening to that yesterday.
Because I had them fourth. I dropped them to sixth. Look, week one, it can be fake, it can be real. I'm choosing maybe somewhere in the middle in Texas Tech.
But West Virginia played a real football team, all right? And they played Penn State, who actually maybe with Andy Kotelnicki could be a playoff. They're going to be on the playoff.
Right, and West Virginia's lucky it was 34-12.
I don't know. West Virginia had a poor effort. I'm not going to argue that. But when you go to overtime against Abilene Christian and give up 500-plus yards passing, I can't get on board.
And I still think, and the hilarious thing is Texas Tech could still start 5-0. Regardless of all that.
Texas Tech, check the pulse of their fan base, man. Go look at their injury report. They've already lost a couple defenders for the season. We've got another couple that are questionable for the game. Taj Brooks may not even play on Saturday at Wazoo.
Yeah. No, I get it. I just don't think the next four opponents are noticeably better than them, so it's still on the table. West Virginia could lose to Pitt.
I'm going to take West Virginia there. I don't know, man. Texas Tech just, that emanated like 5-7 to 7-5 vibes, which is typically what they do. I think still a little more highly of
if you think 5 to 7, 7-5, then this is probably push.
You can only have pick one of the two to play for K-State. All right, you get to pick one of these two guys to play receiver for K-State, but they can only play receiver. All right, that's how I'm trying to make this a little more even. Travis Hunter or Teteroa McMillan. Travis Hunter, Teteroa McMillan. Who are you taking for the Cats?
I think there's probably a little bit more polish for McMillan, and I would take him. I would say Teteroa McMillan. Yeah.
Same. I'm taking McMillan.
If I opened it up to, you can have Travis Hunter for both sides of the ball, does that change the equation?
Probably a little bit, but I think they probably play him too many snaps, and he's going to be burnt out by the end of the season anyway, just like last year.
Yeah, I'd probably change it to Travis Hunter, but I still continue to have, first of all, if I was Colorado, I would put him more on the field at receiver than I would at corner if I had a choice. I just think there's more value there, though their defense is probably an even bigger train wreck if they don't have him out there at corner. So, yeah, I just think they're going to get him hurt, playing him 100-plus snaps every game. So,
yeah, I'd go McMillan, too. For those who didn't pay attention in week one, Teteroa McMillan had 10 catches for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns for Arizona. It was ridiculous. Now, they were playing New Mexico, but that guy is really, really good. Better chance to pull the upset this week, speaking of Colorado at Nebraska or Illinois at home against Kansas?
I will say Illinois because they're the home team, and maybe they can just kind of bully it to a low possession game and keep it close and hope for something late, although I still think KU probably wins by multiple possessions because I just don't know. There's a chance Colorado, you go on the road to Nebraska. I mean, it's early in the season where Colorado usually plays their best football, but I think Colorado could maybe keep it closer than Illinois, but if I would give Illinois a better chance of winning a game, I think. That sounds weird, but that's where I am.
Yeah, Nick just put in the chat what I was going to bring up. Illinois has their first sellout since 2016, and it's KU that is bringing it out. And with 60,000 seats now in their stadium, I think I saw. So it'd be an interesting atmosphere on Saturday. I'm looking forward to watching the game. Colorado and Nebraska, long storied rivalry, revenge game for Nebraska after losing in Boulder last year. But you have a freshman quarterback in Raiola, talented kid. Ultimately, I would say probably Colorado has a better shot of pulling the upset, but I think both lose. I think Colorado and Illinois lose.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I still lean Colorado there. I don't understand the line for Illinois, Kansas. I think Kansas is going to win that game.
I think the only thing that I could justify it is that becomes a really low possession game because of the way Bielema likes to play bully ball.
Finally, who gets more mean tweets by the end of the year from their fan base, Colin Klein or Will Howard? Colin Klein's got a nice jump start. Not Will Howard was perfect on Saturday, but there's some angry Texas A&M fans.
I will say Colin Klein because he is the leader in the clubhouse, and I don't know how much better that can get if they're not any good at quarterback, right? That's the problem. I don't know that it was the offense as a whole. It might have been Connor Wigman, and if Connor Wigman is the best quarterback in that room, then I have real questions about the way the rest of the year is going to go. Then you got Mike Elko screaming to run the ball, so maybe that's what they need to do.
Didn't I see Connor Wigman, though, on draft boards for a first-round pick heading into the season? Is that right? Did I see that?
Maybe there's people that were really, really high on him, and I just assumed they knew what they were talking about. He looked like he didn't belong on a football field.
Yeah, me too. 12 to 29 for 100 yards passing the football. It was not pleasant. You search Colin Klein on Twitter on Saturday night after the game. That's rough for him. So I'll say Colin Klein. That fan base is kind of psychotic. So,
not that Ohio State's is.
Well, I
was going to say. I mean, the only thing here, DY, is that if they lose to Michigan for a third straight year and Will Howard has a bad game, I mean, he could get more mean tweets in one single Saturday than Texas A&M produces the entire season.
That's why it's easy to say Klein now because you got to wait 3 months until that happens.
Yeah. Lead pipe lock of the week. Congratulations to Derek Young, who nailed the Miami pick. He was the only one to get it right in week 1. He is 1-0.
Got it right by a lot, too, by the way.
Yeah. I missed the freaking Stanford, I think, kicked a field goal to kill my cover against TCU.
The tradition of John getting burnt by TCU in week 1 continues.
I know. Well, my traditions are going to continue here very shortly, so just one moment. And Cole missed on North Dakota State and Colorado. Cole putting too much faith in the Bucs.
That was a late cover, though. I mean, North Dakota State scored that touchdown with 2 minutes left in the game. But,
they were 5 yards away from scoring another one to win the game.
And it was also a one-score game for most of the game, too.
Fine. Well, also a pass kicked off a shoe, off a foot of a guy not even looking for a pick that should have been a touchdown for Colorado, probably. So,
yeah, but you never pick Dion to cover. You also don't have to worry about a whole lot. I mean, he tempted fate to losing because of his time clock management. That's why you can't pick Dion to cover because he doesn't know how to coach in late game situations or manage a clock. And apparently they threw the ball in that situation because Shedeur Senior called the play. So the offensive coordinator's not even calling the plays.
I was going to say, yeah, Shedeur was bragging, anyway. Cole, what do you got? Who are you picking?
As my lock of the week?
Lead pipe lock of the week.
John, I don't think people need to hear. Like, did you happen to see the Patreon.com pick'em standings that we have going right now with like 60 plus people in them and where I sit after
No,
we picked DY. We picked 10 games against the spread on Patreon, and we set up a custom website, and I went 2-8.
Hey, week 1, you didn't know anything about these teams.
I'm sitting at the bottom of the standings, and then I miss here on our opening lead pipe block of the week. But I will take. What does Iowa State know how to do well, guys? Lose to Iowa. All right, they go to Iowa City on Saturday, 2.5-point underdogs. I'm taking Iowa as a 2.5-point favorite to cover the spread in this game. I think they'll win it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win it by 10 plus. It's just what they do. What's Iowa State beating them once in the last 7-8 years?
Campbell's only beaten them once. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, so I'll take Iowa.
I won. I'll go last.
Okay, all right. Well, I had 2 that I really liked here. This is the one I am not using as my official pick, and it's only because for the sake of the show and for the bit, I think I need to save my other one to make it my actual pick. But I would feel just as confident in this one. I like Mississippi State plus 6.5 at Arizona State.
So do I.
Overreaction on Arizona State last week, which it was a great performance. I did not think they had that in them. They just completely gobsmacked Wyoming.
Yep.
After not beating anybody by more than 11 points last year in year 1 under Kenny Dillingham. But I don't know that they're ready to completely handle another Power 5 team. Mississippi State was fine. Like, they took care of business in week 1. That's not a great team. That feels like way too much of an overreaction to me to what Arizona State is. So let the record show that I'm giving myself 2 opportunities to at least earn some credibility with the audience. But you guys know my bit. My bit is, Cole thinks I pay too much respect to Kansas, and I start being like every week, like, how is Kansas not favored by more here? But like, dude, Illinois, what are we doing? I understand that they sold the game out and they're all excited and whatnot, but like, Illinois is wretched. Brett, thank you for the Big 12 championship in 2003, but like, man, it's not 2003. Like, Josh Buell is not walking through that door. El Roberson isn't walking through that door. I don't see how Illinois keeps up at all. I would take Kansas to win by 17 on Saturday at Illinois. So KU -5 is my pick.
I actually don't mind both of those picks. Also, not my official one. One I really liked was Auburn. It opened up at 12 against Cal, and Auburn's the home team, so I like that a lot. But I'm not going to wait. I got BYU on Friday night. SMU, every Power 5 team they played last year, they got rolled a little bit. So do you think SMU can beat a Power 4 team in week 2 by double digits? Not me. BYU plus 10.5.
I like that. Did SMU play last week? I watched the week 0 fiasco.
I don't know.
Where's that game at, DY? Is that
it's at SMU. I mean, I would like BYU a lot more if it was at home. I know what you're talking about, but like, SMU didn't beat a Power 4 team last year, and they had 4 chances. I just don't think they're going to go beat BYU by double digits.
I get torn, guys, with these games because I want BYU to win for the conference. I want these teams to win, but I also, don't want BYU to look like a harder game than I thought going into the season. So,
but my logic is sound.
Yeah.
All right. Well, who's leading off here with the prediction? All right. Nick says SMU beat FCS squad 59-7. All right.
You didn't know what HBU stand for, right?
Houston.
Well,
it's Houston Baptist.
Okay, Houston Baptist. Yeah, I was like,
it's Houston Christian.
Houston Christian.
They changed their name.
All right. Let's start with DY. DY, what are you picking? You're the one that's disrespecting.
Yeah.
Tulane all the way around. So.
Yeah, well, I think transfer-heavy teams, as we've seen across the college football landscape this year, have really struggled early in the season. Tulane is a really transfer-heavy team. The fact that Ty Thompson didn't win the quarterback job makes me think that they're a pretty weak at quarterback, and a lot of other people smarter than me would agree. Not a great offseason. I think the fact that these teams played last year actually helped Kansas State and not necessarily Tulane, because John Summerall is facing an offense that probably looks quite a bit different from Kansas State than it did a year ago because of new offensive coordinators, new quarterback, a lot of things that are different for Kansas State. They know what a John Summerall team looks like because both of his coordinators went with him to Tulane. And I think not showing anything by the Kansas State offense in week 1 really helps because John Summerall, it's even more of a mystery to him, even though he's a good defensive coach. New coach, a lot of transfers usually doesn't mean early season success. The fact that they're a little bit weaker at quarterback, they lost everyone on that defense too. So while there's just a lot of transitioning still, and they're going to be playing a really good team that is probably a little bit hungry and pissed off based off what they put on the field last week. So I think Kansas State wins more comfortably than I thought when we did our preseason predictions. I have a K-State 31, Tulane 10.
Man, you got the same spread as Curry, DY. Curry said 38-17.
Yeah, this Tulane's team's a lot weaker than the last two.
Yeah, so I had in the preseason preview pod, we ran through the schedule, K-State 31-23, but I didn't, the defense I think will be a little bit more suffocating. I also thought Ty Thompson would win the QB job, and I thought the offense maybe would be better, but now that I see it's Mensa and Thompson couldn't take the QB job by the reins, I'm going to adjust. I'll take K-State 27, Tulane 17. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm going to catch John there because Jets John's score in his notes. I just gave away his prediction. I was going to try and piss him off by looking at his score prediction on the outline.
And why would that really bother me? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, my bad. 31-16. I'll take K-State to win the game. I think Tulane settles for a few field goals. I'll take K-State 31-16. I think the defense comes up with a couple big turnovers, and hopefully the offense looks a little sharper, more crisp as they head into the Arizona game.
I would be almost disappointed if they only won by 2 touchdowns if they have a +2 in turnovers.
Well, the other thing, Cole, is I'm 0 for 1 on sticking to my prediction on the outline so far this year. So, that doesn't really mean much, we can't take all the suspense out of it, but look, I'm picking K-State to win. So I got to throw the chain on. TY's got both of the helmets. Throws the Tulane helmet out of the way. Yes, more disrespect. I did. Yeah, 27-17. I think the defense will either score or set up a really short field for K-State to score and help out a little bit. And K-State will get out with a, comfortable-ish win. I don't think it'll be like a one-possession game down the stretch. Maybe a late score from Tulane to make it a 10-point game. I'm feeling pretty cautiously optimistic about this as we sit here right now. I would say a little bit less nervous about it than I was going into the season. So there you have it.
Any concerns with Tulane having a couple extra days to prepare, having played on Thursday?
No, because I bet both of these teams were looking at each other like a month ago.
Yeah, Kleiman said the right thing when he got asked about that in the press conference, that no, we have advanced scouts all the time, but we didn't do anything extra. They did a little something extra in the offseason. So would tend to agree. Appreciate everybody for listening today. Thank you to all of our great sponsors. Thank you to Nick Springer, making it all happen behind the scenes. Remember, we will be live about an hour after the game on Saturday, so we'll give you some instant reaction here on Threemaw. So stay tuned into YouTube. Stay tuned into us on Twitter. We will get you the links for all of that as soon as we are going live. For Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another edition of Threemaw.